I'm going to warn everybody, I prepared 51 slides for a 50-minute preso. This is going to go really quick. But you can download the whole presentation here. If you guys want to get your cameras out and go download it. I promise you this will be very entertaining, and this is anonymized, real-life DDoS data that is very good for everyone to see. So first question out there is who has ever experienced, well, who has a WAF, a web application firewall? Okay, so you guys get some socks. Kate, you want to throw some socks out? Socks, yes.
Where are the socks?
Far side. So we're going to, again, look at some DDoS attacks. My name is Mark Spears. I work for Solid Security, also a part of CFC Response. We do a lot of work on the practice side, with professional services, hands-on keyboard, helping people deploy their WAF and zero trust technologies. I'm also involved in almost all the claims that we have, I think actually all of them for the last 5 years, where there's DDoS involved, or generally a web application threat. So I have a lot of telemetry and knowledge and firsthand experience being involved in not just the forensics, but the how do we protect these things and deploy them for companies that don't have them. So I also do a lot of not just virtual CISO work, but what I call virtual chief zero trust security officer. If you're just starting down that path, you should actually reach out to someone who knows what they're doing. And you're gonna probably see a lot of slides on Cloudflare. We are a premier partner with them, and they've provided a lot of the swag up here. So I thank them for that. So I'm certified in a lot of different compliances, WAF, zero trust, again, premier partner with Cloudflare. And I talk at the local OWASP chapters. So we're gonna go over what is DDoS. We're gonna talk about threat actor motivations. We're gonna look at some real world threats and kind of dive into those. And then best practices, key takeaways, and hopefully questions if I can go fast enough. So who's ever had a DDoS attack before? Okay, Kate, can we get some, give me some of these wireless chargers for those people, please?
And a few people didn't get their socks.
Okay.
Start with that.
A route of socks? Well, you can hand out these, as many as you want. Everyone's gonna love those.
Okay, this is what I got?
Oh, no, you can if they've had a DDoS attack, give them some of these.
Okay.
And then you can just throw these out during the presentation.
Wow, that's a lot of DDoS. I need an assistant.
I don't know if we're paid that much.
Wait.
So,
Start this side, this side.
what is DDoS? DDoS is literally filling your pipeline, right? And that's one form of it, trying to make sure you don't have enough bandwidth to handle your regular traffic, right? And so you've got expected good traffic and you have, threat actor DDoS traffic. So DOS is one computer hitting you, not very effective anymore anywhere you go. DDoS is multiple threat actor infrastructures hitting you. And then DR DDoS, we don't hear about that much, but this was a really good fun one.
There's a fourth one, regular expression DDoS.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of them, sir. These are the ones I'm gonna go over. So the DR DDoS is actually where they corrupt the SYN packet and it acts back to you. So your attack will look it came from MSNBC, Google, Yahoo, if they're still around. So, but it's not very common. So there's a tool out there to play with called the Low Orbit Ion Cannon. Have fun with that thing. Use it in your office, play with your coworkers. Your mileage may vary, don't do your boss. So the other thing we see sometimes here is amplification attacks. I see this a lot in pen tests and vulnerability scans. DNS is a good example of this because it's when the packets you send have more packets on the return. So a lot of websites do this by default, right? So that helps fill the pipeline from within, from the inside out. So the weak spots on your network could be anywhere. We see them in the firewall. We see them in the connections between the web server and the database server. And if you don't test this, you can have a very weak infrastructure that's prone to DDoS, because even small attacks can knock your server offline. That's all they're trying to do, And then the large attacks may not knock you offline, but it's going to cost you in elasticity prices with your cloud provider or whatever you've done. So there's a cost to all of this, right? And it happens all the time. Just because you don't have a little hashtag #MeToo with you doesn't mean it hasn't hit. And if you don't have a web application firewall, you're not seeing any of this telemetry for what's happening. You're just guessing. And you're also not seeing the web application firewall threats that are getting mitigated through other means like bot protection and everything else. Who out there sells websites and doesn't sell a WAF with them? Or at least offer one? Because you will get nothing from my presentation. So it's everyone's responsibility. If you have a website, you should have a web application firewall. End of story. I don't care if it's a WordPress website. So again, one company, they had a lot of people hitting their default website page, and they were generating a lot of database traffic between that. And just a little bit of DDoS knocked that web server and the connection to the database server offline and filled their database up. So test these things. So threat actor motivation, this is really a lot of fun, like tying all this stuff back. So there's different threat actors. You got the nation state guys hitting major infrastructure. You have the ransomware groups that are out there. These are organized professional guys that are they're getting paid to do the bad, right? And you're basically getting a pen test that you didn't pay for, but you may through your insurance or loss of hours or maybe loss of job. I've seen that happen as well. So there's also DDoS as a ransomware, dive into that. There's DDoS for hire, and then there's DDoS as a smokescreen. There's a lot of them out there, but two I want to focus on is the one with personal beef and then the ransomware groups, right? Because the ransomware groups did not hit you on purpose. They generally already got you and they're just trying to make some money, right? So they're looking for a vulnerability in either your VPN or something else, and they're just going after you. So you had something weak and you didn't protect it good enough. You have an old firewall. So it was just business for them. They don't care. They have a really good support staff. They're like, hey man, you want us to give you that decryptor? You just need a little money. Crypto, here's a wallet. They're very helpful, crazy enough. So let's talk about the disgruntled employee, competitor, vendor. They don't normally have the infrastructure to attack you. So they have to go to the dark web and they got to go find services out there like DDoS for hire. And sometimes these are dark web services that are just available that anyone can buy. So that's kind of interesting. And they go to them, they find their bot armies, they pay for time with them, and they're going to get attacked from multiple countries, multiple network blocks, multiple IP addresses. It's not really easily detectable as far as where it came from if you don't have the right telemetry. But they're going to look for generally front-end dynamic web pages, and a lot of times it's just a default web page, and that's super easy to get rid of. So the solutions for a lot of this are web application firewall. Do some geo-blocking. I can't tell you the number of times I've had to ask a company, can we geo-block these other countries? And they say, but we have 3 customers in Germany. I'm like, you're going to let millions of IPs in over 3 customers. Just give them or buy for them maybe some proxy service, like some VPN. We all have them, right? And then help those 3 people if they're get in the company, or tell them to get their own proxy. So rate limiting is the other fascinating tool that we don't use enough. I think people assume because they have a WAF that they are already protected, and I'll get more into that, but it doesn't mean you're protected. You need to still put your iron around their DDoS protection, for many reasons. There's a lot of things out there. CISA.gov has guidance for DDoS attacks. Highly recommend you read that because it's too late once you're under attack to know how much it's going to cost. Go speak to your board, and the powers that be that sign the money away and say, hey, you want to know what your protections are in advance for a lot of these attacks. There's an interesting tool called radar.cloudflare.com. Cloudflare moves 15 to 20% of the global internet every day. That's a lot of telemetry they have. So they actually publish it on that website. You can see where the countries are attacking other countries, as far as traffic originating from there and going to. You can see the new thing is email security attacks. Who's got DMARC, who doesn't have DMARC. All these fun things that they're going to give you for free to help talk to your C-suite. So the ransomware group's different story. These guys, back in the day, it was like the Melissa virus, the I love you virus. It was all for notoriety. They didn't care if they went to jail. They were like, did something amazing and across the globe, right? So these guys, they're looking for 0 days, they're looking for initial access vectors. They have ROI requirements, they have campaigns, they're very professional. There's even people who work for them that don't even know they work for a threat actor. It's pretty nuts in that business. So, and the same attacks really apply as far as how to fix them. And you're gonna hear me say attack surface area reduction a lot. But that's the important piece. If it's invisible to the attacker, how are they gonna hit it? Because you could DDoS SSH, you can DDoS FTP. It doesn't have to be a website. It just has to overtake the computer or fill your pipeline and start killing services. So you'll see me talk a lot about SASE, software access secure edge or zero trust architecture. I don't care who you backbone on, but start finding somebody now. So if you can take the SSH, the RDP is a really big one, and get that invisible, it is amazing for how you're not gonna be attacked. And your job gets easier. So real world attacks. I'm gonna just brush through these real quick. So this one I'll take maybe a little more time on. But this was an attack that started at 10:44. You can absolutely see, where they start having these rate limiting rules in orange pop up, and then you can see they start getting bad gateways, meaning this website wasn't responding. They did get some 200 requests in here, that's the orange, and then they kind of went dead right here. So they called me, at 11 o'clock. They already had a WAF in place, but they didn't have the technical knowledge. We did a quick review of traffic. By 11:03, we had updated some rate limiting rules to start giving too many requests or HTTP 429s. And by 11:04 to 11:06, you can see the entire attack was blocked. Easy win, but you can't do this if you don't have a web application firewall. Then now you're trying to install one, call your ISP, see if they have any remediations, and they want a lot of money versus already having something in place you could use. So the same threat actor came back actually later the same day. Very persistent guy. And they hit them again, and you could see that they had a bunch of OKs, and then the web server became unresponsive. So about right here, you can see they did a reboot at 1:55, and they called me at they had called me in this case at 1:30. So we had talked about how to look at it. We reviewed some of the traffic. He did a reboot, I added some rules, and all of a sudden the web server was fine. So in the analysis of these security events, not just the traffic, but what was caught on security events, you could see this is what the attack wave looked like, right? You could see they had a lot of managed challenges, which is where you say, hey, are you a bot or are you a person? Sometimes the WAF providers, in this case, they can provide a button to say, are you human? Sometimes they'll throw some long mathematical equation that, unless you're an MIT grad, you're not gonna solve in 3 seconds. And they'll identify you as a bot that way. There's a lot of telemetry and a lot of things that are known. So this was the 2 attacks, and you can see over here when we talked about managed challenges, I have one in here where if they're hitting the root page more than 5 times in 10 seconds, they get a managed challenge. And because it could be a page assembly, sometimes you hit the same page multiple times while they're loading in a browser. And then I had another one down here where if they would get blocked and not managed challenged. If they hit it 10 times in 10 seconds, you're blocked for an entire day. That's good, right? But you have to know your volumes to get to that point in time, right? So, and the other one, if you hit it 20 times in 1 minute, then you get a managed challenge as well. Sometimes you want to offer a managed challenge and then maybe offer another one. But if they don't pass the managed challenge, they're going to be blocked. So, and they'll get too many requests and then they'll start getting not there. So, and all these attacks are very big, right? So this same company got attacked a couple months later, right? And so they called me because you can look, what I like to see is you can see normal traffic here. They look like ocean waves. And then over here, they were monitoring their traffic and they had a bit of an anomaly. Well, that could have been maybe some news reports about them, depending upon your company. Could be a lot of things. But bottom line is they asked me to review it. Their server didn't get knocked offline in this case. So in the post-mortem, they just had a simple 100 hits. A simple 100 hits, and it was all blocked, right? Like someone was testing your defenses. So good, didn't go down. Because even small attacks can mean something. Could be credential stuffing. That happens in very small numbers. So the bot traffic review in the same time period didn't pick it up as actually a bot. It picked it up as likely human. And that's because it may be newer traffic. It hasn't been known or identified yet. So you want to make sure you're looking at all this telemetry that's going to come from whatever WAF provider you want to use. So I reviewed and updated its configuration just to review it. That's what you do when attacks happen, right? You review and give a report. So then a week later, he got hit again. This time with about 20 million hits. Or I think it was 18 million on the next slide. But what I want to point out here is looking at this, you can easily identify the threat traffic if you have the right data. And this baseline here in green, you want to know what that is. You want to get some traffic through there and go, what's the average number of times people hit certain pages or dwell on our website? And start putting some rules in play, at least some catch-alls, before you get really specific. So that's very important to do. Another piece of the analysis of this attack is it lasted about 1 hour. That's a good thing if you look at to identify that, because there is a DDoS as a service where you can sign up for these dark web companies. They'll give you tokens and they'll give you 1 hour per token. So, this guy, again, personal beef, doesn't have the infrastructure. He's going out to other people, right? And he has to buy services and he has to pay money. And he has to hate you that much that he's going to spend his own money to take your website offline, right? So the other part of the analysis on the security events on this one is the WAF providers have generally a very large global network. And they don't want the DDoS on their network either because it costs them money. And it costs them services and processing power in their cloud environments. Because almost every WAF, unless you have it locally, is a proxy to some website. So you can see in here, like the majority of what was blocked was actually DDoS rules. And in the sample at Cloudflare, we don't create our own DDoS rules. Cloudflare does that for us. So they identified a known botnet and got rid of it off of their network. So that was good because they see, again, 15 and 20% of the global internet traffic, and they've already identified these people. Now, this is where I talk about your extra iron, right? The geo-blocking rules helped, and then these managed bot rules helped, and then the rate limiting rules helped as well. You have to add your own iron onto the DDoS stuff to make sure it's good. So their telemetry from a DDoS or a WAF perspective matters. So get the right company who has the right telemetry. Second part of the analysis is you can see that this is very classic DDoS. Most of that traffic hit the default web page or the / or the root of the website. That's classic. They're going to pick a page or have different bot traffics pick a page and make you kind of hunt and get rid of them. So, and they're going to hit dynamic web pages, and they're going to hit things that normally are just, they're not CDN traffic. It's not a part of that. So again, know your data, tools, and telemetry. The attackers can be very wide and in very small amounts. In this case, you can see here's a distribution of traffic at the 7 million. There was many more below these top 4. I just grabbed the top 4 for the slide size. But you can see there is Tor, Indonesia, Russia, US. Some companies have to do global business in Russia. Some don't. If you don't do business in Russia, block them. You can see the AS numbering blocks, right? They were 390 on down, and that list was much longer than that. So, understanding which countries you want to block, which ASNs only have bad traffic. You look at the bad traffic, and then you go back and look at the good traffic and go, has this AS number block ever sent me good traffic before? Block them, or manage challenge them. The IP addresses started at 136,000 and went all the way down to very small numbers, right? And the user agents were also very varied. So looking at this telemetry helps you know things. So This company got attacked several times very persistently. They have all time, but you have the home field advantage. They have to guess what protections you have and why they're getting blocked, unless they're inside of your configuration. So it's very important that you're actually, using that to your knowledge and helping get them out of your environment and costing you money and downtime. So that's an easy one. That was actually really easy. Everything that was easy? It's pretty easy. So let's look at another one. This is a very large DDoS. This insured company called in, and they had an AWS firewall. And when the attack happened, they didn't have the most advanced AWS firewall. The web application firewalls are all pay to play. You can get basic things for nearly nothing, but the second you get large attacks, you need more telemetry, all that costs money. So, and you can almost see where the threat actors tried an attack and then let it pull off, then they regathered and did something else. I see that all the time. They're like, oh, we're getting blocked. Let's try another tactic. Let's hit a different web page. They've already blocked that one, obviously. So these guys had a very large one. It was 327 million hits an hour. And you break that down to per minute and per second, that's a lot. And it's good. And they had, motivation. They had just removed and severed a relationship with a company. And this happened like within a day or two. It's like working on your car and something goes wrong. You're like, oh, it's a new problem. No, go back and look at what you just did a week ago. It's probably going to be related to that. So in the notes of this, to put this in this cyber CSF perspective, they kept going back and forth between protect and detect. They did a good identification phase by having a WAF and identifying the protections they needed. But when it came to protections, they put those in place. They had the alerting, and they use their cyber insurance. And this is a good use of your cyber insurance. They didn't need to file a claim or pay a deductible. They just called up the helpline to get experts on the phone. And I helped remediate this, and they didn't need to file a claim. I helped them understand the telemetry they were missing, and they never called back. So they added advanced features, rate limiting. They built themselves a custom elk stack to get their own telemetry that they can see stronger. And they just kind of bounce back and forth between this protect, detect, and respond. And then what they were missing was this JA3 and JA4 telemetry, which I will talk about later. It is the golden goose of DDoS. So DDoS as ransom. Now, this is funny. This ransom never got paid. These guys never actually, they took the website down just from sheer volume, but most of it was blocked. But it was a small amount that got through that still took them down. But you can see 3 waves in here in about 35 minutes, right? Then they got a ransom note saying, hey, we'll stop doing this if you give us money. And so they called their insurance. They're like, hey, what do? We have protections against this stuff, DDoS attacks. And so they used a slow negotiation tactic. Keep them on the line while you see if you can fix this on your own, right? And that's not a bad tactic. Not a bad tactic at all, right? So the baseline, if you notice, in the green is very small. Their traffic was minute compared to the attack, right? So, and most of that traffic of the 14 million was actually forbidden. It was blocked, 403, unauthorized traffic, right? So, or forbidden. So they came back again. Well, this is a security event review. They came back again later on, and they hit them again. But notice all this stuff was pretty much blocked, right? And we found out in the security event review that the provider came in and blocked it again, right? And they did their job. They did their job, right? So that was very good. But what I worried about, is their WAF config. So we helped them turn on all these things that we know from OWASP we should be doing. HSTS, your security headers, page shield, bot fighters, TLS recommenders, all minimum TLS versions, right? So a lot of things you should be looking at to do. So they came back a third time, and this was about over 3 minutes, about 3 million hits, right? And it was, again, all blocked for the most part by DDoS rules, but some of the other rules that we helped them configure that they didn't have set actually helped block and tackle. So all that's very good. But about a minute, a million a minute, right? So that's good. And the threat actors actually changed the default page to a different page, home field advantage. They saw they're getting blocked. They had to adjust their tactics, and they will. So, and they weren't knocked offline. They came back a fourth time, 34 minutes, and they had 25 million hits. That's a lot. Pretty good for some websites. I'm not sure maybe they'll get 25 million hits that quickly on a normal business basis. But you see three distinct ways where they kept changing their tactics, trying to get them to pay the ransom. And you could actually see, the threat actors sent them an email. Said, we know what you're doing. You're not paying the ransom, and we want the ransom money. So they hit them super hard this time. And they didn't need to. They didn't need to even file a claim. So it was all good, but you can see about 1 million a minute in each of those attacks. So DDoS is a smokescreen. Now this is the hardest. DDoS is a smokescreen, basically revolves around where there's a DDoS attack, but the threat actors are going after something else. You gotta normally have something they want. Crypto, some data they want, something that really is worth money to them. So they'll give you a DDoS attack, and under that DDoS attack, when you strip it away, there's more things there. So in this case, it wasn't that big of an attack, right? But this company is a high-profile company I deal with every day, and they are a high-value target, super high-value target. And so their attacks are constant, and from different threat actors, I can point them back to sometimes. So if we go look at this attack under the covers, right, you could see that there was several pieces of traffic that was direct, meaning it didn't come through Google, it was straight to the website. Doesn't always mean it's bad, but it's there. But out of all the traffic, that was about 16 million of that, or about 15 million going to the root web page. Well, that's good. We can easily skiff that away, right? With volumetric-based attack settings for rate limiting, right? Some block and tackling. So, but if you take the 716 million of the total attack and you subtract out what went to the default path, that leaves 188 million requests. Above what they normally have, it went somewhere, and that's the smoke screen for the DDoS. So what was our goal? Let's go look at the smoke screen. So once I removed the default web page and did some basic simple filtering, we can see some different traffic, right? We removed what went to the CDN. We only want to see dynamic traffic, and there's not a lot of people hacking through mobile and tablets, so I removed some of that traffic because you just never see that. And then the country in this case where the attack mainly came from. So again, understand your web traffic, but you can see like this is all the things that were hit. And you can see API, login, their UAT environment, right? And then I can't read the far side, but it was their app. So they were going after something there. And so what you have to do sometimes to understand the traffic is look at a different time period. So this attack happened in March. I was analyzing it in April, because sometimes I go back and look at the previous month's traffic to identify what we didn't see. So you can see the traffic in that previous time period was up a little bit, so from normal. So then you go find your anomalies. So I kept looking, and here's the hosts they were hitting the most. Here's the edge status codes. There are some 200s, some unauthorized, some service unavailable. Could have been a vulnerability scan on some web pages. But in this case, they were going after their APIs. They had two versions of APIs, an old one and a new one, and they were credential stuffing those APIs. Every talk you see that talks about API security, look at it and believe it, especially if this is like a more advanced threat actor method, but it's out there. But credential stuffing, abuse, probing, they don't want to give away their infrastructure. So they DDoS, so you're focused on this DDoS, but there's stuff under there that's really the important stuff. So Important here is to log everything. Have a log. Have a log, turn them on. When we can't do forensics if we don't have logging turned on. That should be part of your identify and your protect in NIST CSF. So in this attack, they were going after forgot password, forgot username, register, and they generally see them go from unauthorized to authorized traffic. You see that all the time, right? Because that's where they can abuse and get in. So review your traffic, add your bot and AI rules, right? And talk with your C-suite, your DevOps group. Talk what's normal. What did you build this page to handle, right? How often do customers linger on this page, especially when it goes from unauthorized to authorized traffic boundaries? So DDoS is a side effect. I'm doing great on time. So, good. So the side effect is we can DDoS any port we want. We're talking about a lot of web ports, right? So I've had like 4 cases I've been involved in the last couple months where it was a firewall VPN issue. And when the firewall has your VPN and all of your internal external traffic, it gets tired, right? I mean, when the firewall goes down in an office, it's like the email server going down. Panic sets in, the C-suite gets upset. They're trying to, keep an old firewall on life support and kick it back into motion. And then they're assuming it was DDoS. But in almost all these cases where the firewall went down, that was an on-site firewall, it was an old firewall, and it was just tired. So, and a lot of times, they're going after the VPN, and they're getting that from dark web data. Like, who here has heard of Redline malware stealer? Oh, you get a Cloudflare cup, sir. Come on up. So, that's a big one. Yeah, if you don't look at the dark web data, you never see or can prepare for an attack. You have to have a good dark web provider who has the right telemetry. Gentleman in the back with his hand up. So, thank you, Kate. So, you have to have telemetry to prepare for attacks. If you don't have it, and you don't have the tools to then stop the attack, you are at a total loss. And we didn't do a good job of what we're supposed to be doing. Small companies I get blindsided for budget. The big ones, like you got the money. You just got to sell it to the CIO, right, or the board. So it's all misdiagnosed. So one thing I talk about a lot in this case is your cyber insurance is not going to replace your firewall for you. It's not something that they give anywhere in their services, right? And replacing a firewall is not the fun task ever, right? I mean, it takes time, planning. So I'm a big fan of these proxies. Use your web application firewall. That's a reverse proxy. And then use a secure access edge, and that's a reverse proxy. But you take the things the firewall was doing, like the VPN, and you move it into your SASE environment, reducing the stress on the firewall. So now your firewall is only doing these internal things it really needs to be doing. And it's not doing the extra things that might knock it offline. Or it'll even allow for credential stuffing, because when you use SASE for your VPN, you're going to get MFA, a centralized user base. Who here does zero trust architecture? Kinda? All right. Is Kate still here? No, okay. So I got fanny packs for that one. So, but there's a lot of things on zero trust. There's NIST CSF 2.0, heavily backed up by zero trust architecture. You got also zero trust architecture by NIST 800-207. You've got CISA.gov, who has a zero trust maturity model. And then you have zerotrustroadmap.org, which is a really good way to look at how to build these things in. So reduce that firewall stress, and you can keep an older firewall around longer, as long as it's still getting security updates. So if you don't know anything about zero trust, find a good SME consultant firm to help you build your strategic plan to roll that out, the phase lines, all of those things. Best solutions. Fully use all your telemetry. You bought this stuff. These companies have it. Not everybody has the best telemetry, but use everything you've been given. Use the country, ASN, data center, IP data. Where's my traffic coming from? Where's my illegitimate traffic coming from? Where is it shared? And start building some easy rules. Laptop, desktop, mobile, tablet, OS, user agent. Really easy, right? You have the data, right? I mean, if it says Nmap in the user agent, it's probably not legit traffic, right? I mean, if it says a lot of things. So the other thing is use the tools that come with it. First tool is disable WAF bypass. Who knows what WAF bypass is? Yes, so WAF bypass is when, if it's proxied through the DNS, it's going through the WAF, right? The web application firewall. If they're able to call the IP address directly, they are bypassing all of these protections, all of them. They mean nothing, right? So make sure the IP of your web applications only listen to the proxy that you set it up for. And now you're immune to that. But a lot of companies don't do that step and no one does it for you. So manage rule sets, custom rules, rate limiting, browser anomaly scoring. There's OWASP, mod core rule set security. All that's great stuff. So again, most providers have many tiers of service and they're paid for tiers. Make sure you know what tier you're on, what telemetry you get when you move up, and socialize that with your CIO, your CISO, and your board. And make sure that they know that if this were to happen, this is our plan. So also, there's AI specific and API specific. API security has become very big lately, and so is all the bot stuff. So, on the left over here, this is on Cloudflare. This is all the things that traffic goes through, all the protections before it gets to your origin server. To even when Cloudflare calls it, they're looking at all these little boxes up here. These are all ways you could have stopped bad things from happening. So a quick note on JA3 and JA4. This is revolutionary. Who knows what JA3 and JA4 is? Oh, man, I wish everyone knew, and now you're gonna know, right? So it's a TLS signature of the clients hitting your website. It's basically a hash of the TLS. So what that gives you, most threat actors are gonna have commonalities in their infrastructure. They're gonna have the same types of software they're deploying to all this threat actor stuff and zombies they've got across the globe. And it'll have the same JA3 or JA4 signature. And this doesn't come free. This is not first tier data. You gotta buy more services to get this. But when you get a DDoS attack, and you can't look at country, you can't look at IP, you can't look at data center or ASN, this basically says all of these browsers from across the globe had the exact same characteristic, and this is what they were hitting. Boom, it's a flashlight in the dark. So I highly recommend you know that, because you see on the left here, here's small numbers, right? And then you can see kind of the bigger number of that top JA3 signature. Easy to block. Boom, block this. Done. Bye-bye, threat actor, right? So funneling traffic. Use your custom block rules. You can put rules on the whole of your account that it has all your domains, and then you have different domains in the account and different sites for each of those domains. Like use the account level rules to do your funneling, like block and tackle certain things, then block and tackle the next thing. On the whole domain, geo-blocking, JA3, JA4, AI scrapers, user agents that are stupid that shouldn't be on your website. And if you have WordPress, just for example, here's some things I do on WordPress a lot. Depending upon how they're using WordPress, sometimes you gotta turn some of these off or make the rules a little stronger. So, but customize to your environment. It's unique. You know how you want people to use your website, funnel them there. Custom rate limiting, same thing. Block heavily repeating traffic, DDoS, port scanners. How fast should they be hitting your website? Vulnerability scanners are going to get a lot of 400 and 500 error traffic. Easy to pick out. If they generate a small amount of those, block that traffic immediately. Why let them vulnerably scan your website? So there's a lot of web app specific things that I do with managed challenges, API specific attacks. Maybe if you're not sure, temporarily use a log option. That'll get actually automatically added more telemetry that you wouldn't have if it was just regular HTTP traffic review. So your security team versus risk management. This is always a struggle. This is the daily struggle. We need to be prepared for these topics, but we got to get buy-in from management. So it's important your technology team, and we've got several of them here, right? They need to look at and consider technical debt and risks, considering the live threats that are out there, not just the check-the-box security. I don't care about that as much. I was in a Mandiant briefing the other day, and only 5% of CVEs ever get exploited. So I get we have to block criticals and highs, but really plan it on who's out there and doing what. But give that data to your CIO and CISO, if you have one. Make them present that to the board, and the board gets to make two decisions. I accept the risk or I don't accept the risk. Don't be the security team that lets the board or stakeholders tell you that it's your risk to accept. No, sir. You don't own the company. You don't own the stake. If it goes down, it's not your problem. It is, looking for another job. But they have to make that decision. That's their job. And if they don't know enough, they need to rely on you and say yes or no, here's the money, or here's the time to do these extra protections. Key takeaways, I'll put these in NIST CSF perspective. Identify and map your perimeter. Know what they're going to hit in advance. What's out there? How do we protect those ports and services, right? And tabletop. CISA.gov has got amazing tabletops that they've made from real life things that have happened to large organizations. And they're good. They're normally 1 or 2 day events. You can do like 2 hours and 2 hours, and you're probably done with half of them, but they're fun. Thank you, Kate. DDoS prevention and preparedness. CISA.gov has a whole guideline for how you should be prepared. Read it, tabletop it, socialize it to your management, right? Because you don't want to be caught blindsided. Read up on the actual threat actors. CISA.gov gives stuff on Scattered Spider, Lockbit, all the different threat actors. Read what they're really doing. And then say, these are my real threats that are really coming after people right now. This is not Joe Schmo doing a vulnerability scan from the Philippines, right? And gonna hit you a little bit. These are guys that are really trying to break into your infrastructure and cost you money. Ransomware, all that stuff. And then read the cheat sheets on OWASP. We're here because we all love OWASP, right? Who loves OWASP? Yeah, perfect. So, protect. When you do that network scan, reduce the attack surface area. Don't just ignore it. Put a plan in place. If they can't attack it, you can't get ransomware. You can't get attacked. Do your homework. Close the unnecessary ports that you don't need. I've seen so many WordPress websites, and they've got all like the 465, all the email ports they're not using open. Why? Look at that stuff. Sprinkle security to your plans. Turn on logging. Make sure you got a good SIM and a SOC. We have a great SIM and SOC, and there's a lot of great ones out there, but that is still your last line of defense, period. Attack surface area reduction is your first line of defense and your best line of defense. Same thing with BECs, right? Training your employees, who are your weakest link, can also be your human firewall. So use a SASE and put MFA everywhere. Everywhere. Don't just lie on your insurance applications. You have MFA? Hey, Bob, we got MFA? Yeah, I think we got some MFA. Yeah, we got MFA. And then all of a sudden you get hit, right? It hurts everyone's insurance. And then use a web application firewall. Do not even have a WordPress website, a 3-line code, hello world, and not have a web application firewall. And then do things. Test it, tabletop it, do a business continuity plan, and then have cyber insurance. And hopefully don't let your cyber insurance be your cyber information security program. I know who you are out there. So, because that costs a deductible, and it's like an accident. You can't drive your car through Dairy Queen twice in a year and expect your insurance not to go up. And by switching companies, you're really hurting everybody. Everyone's rates go up. So work with your insurance providers. On detection, firewall, SIM, and SOC. All that stuff super important. Get your telemetry. respond, review your attacks, update your configurations, harden. And then on recover, fix your blind spots and write a business continuity plan. So, or business continuity management plan, which incorporates BCP and IRP into one, because a lot of things you would do are exactly the same. Yeah, whether an airplane hits your building or you got to rebuild some servers, it's the same thing. All right, so you can, again, here's a link to my LinkedIn. You can download the presentation. I think, no minutes for questions, I don't think, Kate.
We can take a couple. People just eat lunch, but they're being very polite.
Gotcha. If you have the telemetry, you can get that data. Review your previous attacks, right? And a lot of times how long that log storage is depending upon the tier of the WAF that you're on, right?
Right, but you can't write a formula like that has that.
No, you could actually. And I'll say this because they're my favorite vendor, Cloudflare. They are 100% API driven from one single API. Anything you do on their website, you can do through the API. So you could write some rules if you wanted to have it historically check some things and then auto-generate a rule through API calls. So you can build your own logic. It's just you have to have the team to do it.
Okay, it's like a lab function.
For sure. And they even have a serverless architecture that they give out for mainly free, crazy enough. So the question is, how do we quantify cost to the C-suite, right, of this DDoS attack? Number one, if there's a cost to your elasticity, right, that's a definite cost you can show them. Number two, if the site goes down, how many sales per minute are going through there? And was it during peak hours, right? And then how much was the work to get that site back up and running to reboot it and to put those new rules in? So there's a lot of things you can pull up on that. Yes, sir.
For the JA3, JA4 algorithm construction, how does that work on like virtualized systems that perform attacks in multiple different areas? Like how reliable is it?
You have to have the origin. You have to have the actual true IP address of the attacker, right?
Oh, okay.
So if you have that, it includes TLS data, and you can absolutely hash that on your own.
Okay.
The formulas are online on that website, or you could have the telemetry already built in.
I got you. Perfect. Thanks.
Gotcha. JA3, that's my favorite technology, swear. Anyone else have any questions? No? Thank you, everyone, very much. Enjoy your lunch. If you want to come up and get some swag and talk to me, I'm going to sit here for a few minutes.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Awesome
you,
talk.
Kate, very
Thank
much.
you.